Sheffield is not a northern city that's talked about very often when it comes to urban regeneration. However, at the moment it's undergoing a bit of an urban renaissance. Multiple sites across the city are completing from both the public and private sectors as part of the Heart of the City project. But what is the Heart of the City? The Heart of the City refers to two key regeneration projects undertaken within the past 2 decades. The first Heart of the City project saw several sites regenerated. New squares were created, new buildings, and general improvements to the city. But this scheme grinded to a halt. Now it's been revived again under the same name, or sometimes referred to as Heart of the City 2.
Hi, I'm here giving you a quick update regarding Heart of the City 2 project.
This is a story of them both. The Heart of the City project was a £130 million regeneration scheme originally envisaged in 1994 and was expected to complete in 2006. The Heart of the City built the indoor winter garden, the Millennium Gallery, the Peace Gardens and the area surrounding St Paul's Place. Back in 1994, Sheffield Council commissioned a retail study from a firm called Hillier Parker, which highlighted the inadequacy of Sheffield's retail offer and called for significant new investment in a major new retail scheme. That study formed the basis of Sheffield's retail strategy. This was a council development plan that was adopted in 1998 and made the regeneration of the city centre a key council aim. In February 2000, the government set up an urban regeneration company known as Sheffield One to assist in the regeneration of Sheffield city centre. The Sheffield Retail Quarter would have relocated the John Lewis building and demolished a number of historic buildings to make way for a new shopping centre. By the time this would have come to fruition, it would have likely been out of date. The neighbouring city of Leeds built the Trinity Square shopping centre during this time period, which is already lauded for being a shopping centre built too late, due to the decline of a city centre shopping happening at this time. What really stopped the scheme was the government's austerity cuts and the withdrawal of £12 million of funds that were promised to it by the regional development agency Yorkshire Forward. The shopping centre was never built, however some key sites were built, with others left behind. The role of retail in UK cities has been struggling for the past decades, but another major loss for the city was the Castle Market in 2015. Its final days can be seen in this archive footage.
For the last 16 years, the council's been promising us a new market, and it's just not happened. We've been hanging on and hanging on. It's happening now. Whether it's too late, I don't know. Whether we've lost these customers and we cannot get them back.
This was a brutalist market located within the city centre. A new market was promised and was finally delivered in the form of the Moor Market. The site of the former Castle Market has laid empty for the past 9 years, awaiting development. The arrival to Sheffield by train is a strong one, snaking through the valley before submerging into darkness on the final approach through tunnels. Upon exiting the train station, you're greeted by what is one of the finest arrival squares in the north of England. A curving water feature separates a busy road from this square and guides you towards the city centre. This square is not complete, with one whole side of this featuring several vacant sites from previously demolished buildings. But on the whole, I'm always impressed by this entrance to the city.
You walked out the station and you were faced with a very busy 4 lanes of traffic and a car park, and you tiptoed around the edge of this car park between that and the highway, or you wove your way through the kind of potholes of this rough old car park, and it was not a lot better condition than the building site we see behind us.
Up the hill and into the city centre one finds the Winter Gardens, a notable addition added as part of the Heart of the City project. The garden part of these is quite anticlimactic, with the wooden roof trusses being more interesting than the actual botanical elements. It is pleasant though to have an indoor city centre space that does not feel overly commercial, a place to sit without the need to buy something. It also serves as a link through to the Peace Gardens, which is an added bonus. The next place in the heart of the city is its most central point, the Peace Gardens. This area in front of the Sheffield Town Hall was revamped as part of the Heart of the City project. One thing I always take note of in Sheffield is the amount of water fountains and water features. Coming from Newcastle, there are no water fountains in the city centre, whereas Sheffield seems to have these in every major square.
Now the themes that sort of underpinned the whole thing were Sheffield as a Pennine city, sandstone, Pennine gritstone, metalworking, and we've got the bronze vessels, and then there was a theme of water, as all to do with water power and rivers of the Pennines flowing down, generating the power for the industry, and channels, channeling water, and then there was this sort of imagery about pouring liquids into moulds and it's all being brightly lit at night and all that.
The other major scheme completed at this point in time was the pedestrianisation of Fargate. This is a main thoroughfare connecting up with the Peace Gardens, which is now being dug up again. On my walk, the frustration of this and the constant works could be overheard with a woman exclaiming to her partner, "Why are they digging this up again?" On my trip, this was on a poor state of repair. It is yet to be seen if a bit of resurfacing will save the street. After the removal of funding from central government, the original Heart of the City project stalled. No other major progress was made for several years. With the Heart of the City project left unfinished, it was clear a new scheme was needed to drive forward the regeneration. However, the Heart of the City project was almost a 1970s approach to town planning of knocking down important buildings just to build shopping centres. What is first noticeable when entering the Heart of the City 2 scheme is the quality of street materials and landscaping. Each street seems to have a good amount of landscaping, often designed in a way to sustainably drain the sites. However, this high quality street paving already bears the scars of utility companies which have dug up parts of the scheme and placed back their infamous black tarmac. For a scheme which is a few months old or years old, this is really a disgrace. But this aside, the materials and seating do well to liven up the landscape with plenty of places to sit and enjoy these spaces. In general, the completed buildings are of high quality. The inner parts of Heart of the City 2 are not architecturally distinctive. You can find similar buildings in Leeds, Manchester or Newcastle. This is grade A office space with glass windows and large floor plates. It's hardly reinventing the wheel. But the edges are where the good stuff is, where historic buildings have been kept and the blending of new and old. In this next section, I will highlight some of the notable projects that have been undertaken here. The Kangaroo Works are a block of flats nearby to Pounds Park, and it's the most bland element of the whole proposal.
As such, the planners requested a cohesive design using a limited material palette to create an identity to the building. The challenge, therefore, was how to use this limited palette and create a building of architectural merit and character that responded sympathetically to its various local context.
This is 365 new apartments in a grey and rather bland building. But the further introduction of residential properties here is a good thing for Sheffield. Growing its city centre residential population is needed to support the retail and jobs here. New residential flats in a property known as Elshaw House have been constructed. Within this scheme there are balconies and ground floor retail units. Not much really needs to be said here, but these look a positive addition to the city centre. What's most novel about this regeneration scheme has been the inclusion of a new city centre park, rather than just a bland square with a few empty seats. They've introduced a new play area here, with slides and climbing frames. At the minute its location does feel a bit misplaced. The buildings to the north of the site were built before the scheme and currently just turn their side to it and have no windows overlooking. One of the last sites with scaffolding still up is the Radisson Hotel overlooking the Peace Gardens. This is a partial rebuild and rooftop extension to the existing buildings and appears to be a positive addition to the city centre. As part of the previous Heart of the City scheme, this building would have been completely demolished and replaced with a shopping centre. Whilst the approach taken on this site under the Heart of the City 2 is much less radical, it's a more considerate approach to the surroundings and the street scene. What can also be said is this scheme is actually being constructed, unlike the original shopping centre under the Heart of the City 1 scheme. The real centrepiece of this entire project is the new HSBC office. Its design, as with all the other buildings here, is nothing too striking. It appears well placed, and it helps cement jobs here. The mix of uses as part of the Heart of the City 2 scheme, with residential, flats, offices and retail units, gives the Heart of the City all the components one needs to make a successful place. The last part of this city centre regeneration to discuss is the vacant John Lewis building at Baker's Pool. John Lewis decided to close his store in March 2021, with other major cities losing their stores, such as Birmingham. The one in Sheffield was formerly opened as the Cole Brothers in 1963, before being converted into a John Lewis. This brutalist or modernist building has a simple external appearance, but holds a prominent position in the city, overlooking the square at Baker's Pool. After John Lewis closed, there were fears of a partial demolition or a full demolition of this building, but this was listed at Grade 2 by Historic England for being an example of high modernism architecture in a department store. Its future now lies as a potential art centre, with the developer Urban Splash in the position to enact this. Now, Urban Splash and Sheffield's heritage have a strange relationship. They were the ones to gut Sheffield's Park Hill back to its concrete frame, before rebuilding this almost in its entirety. This wouldn't be allowed to happen to any other listed building. Cambridge Street forms one of the Sheffield's oldest streets, one with multiple historic buildings. However, the blank elevation of the side of John Lewis and the car park here kills off half the street. It's unlikely even with this redevelopment of one side, this street will ever be lively again. The Cambridge Street regeneration did lead to the loss of the historic Atoll Hotel, or Atoll Hotel, which was beloved by many. Just around the corner from here is one of the finest buildings not included as part of this master plan, the Salvation Army Citadel. Whilst obviously many new buildings have sprung up or been renovated on every side of this still remains vacant with no future plans. I hope any future proposals can at least save the facade of this, as even in its rundown state it's really impressive. The Heart of the City scheme is not yet finished. There are a number of sites that are now nearing completion, but with John Lewis closing and this big city centre store now being left to fill with a listed car park behind it, it's a difficult site to deal with. It's yet to see how these schemes will age.